Joining us this morning, NBC News investigative reporter Tom Winter and former admissions officer at Barnard College of Columbia University, also co-founder of Expert Admissions, Dr. Bari Norman. They're here to try to help us make sense of it all.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Now, first of all, in terms of the investigation, how did investigators come to discover what was going on, and how did these parents get away with it for so long?
Well, Craig, that's one of the things we're still trying to find out is exactly what the original investigation was. It wasn't this particular case that eventually led them to uncover this information, and this has been going on, according to the court documents, since 2011. So this has been going on for some time, and a lot of the behavior that was charged in this stems back to 2015 up until in some of the controlled calls the FBI was making were up to just a few weeks ago. As a matter of fact, one of the people that ended up cooperating with the government, that cooperation happened just in the last couple of weeks. So this is something that's been ongoing. The case really kind of came to a point in September of last year. So this is something that is rapidly moved forward by law enforcement. And, you know, with time this morning, we're able to go through these over 300 pages of charging documents. We really start to get into some of the key details. And I think one of the things that's new that we're just starting to learn about is that there's nearly 800 families that were involved in this, 761.
Do you know why I get so riled up about this? I feel like my eyes were open when I moved to New York City, right? So I went to Wichita, Kansas public schools. Kudos to USD 259 public school. And I remember when I moved to New York City, I'm like, no, we're going to go to school in our neighborhood. We're going to, you know, we're not doing all of this private school stuff. You know, I was so against it. And then slowly but surely, when you're here, you realize there's a whole nother matrix of getting into, and I'm talking about preschool, let alone college, and the steps that parents will take to get their kids into preschool and the money that they will spend. So we shouldn't be surprised then when you're talking about Ivy League schools. It's unfortunate that there's this cutthroat thing, this underbed that's been happening probably, which people think, for years. And perhaps this isn't the only one. Am I crazy? I mean, this has turned into a business. Sorry about my rant, but I get all hot and bothered about it because I feel like it could have been going on for years.
Right.
Probably has been going on for years.
I mean, I don't know how you can't be bothered by it, right? You know, neither of my parents went to four-year colleges. I worked hard to get to college, and you hear about something like this, people who already have every advantage and privilege, and it's just not good enough. It's the American dream that you work hard and you can achieve. And here we have things not only cutting into that, but just illegal.
So where do you draw the line, Doctor? Because you've got a company that helps for parents navigate that. In full disclosure, I've used the company for our daughter, Leela, to give us advice, a college consultant. But where is the line where it crosses into what's illegal?
Right. Well, I think, listen, I can tell you, I work with students actually at all levels of the income spectrum. A 17-year-old is a 17-year-old. They need help. They need guidance through this complex process that even parents can't make sense of.
Because it's different than when we went to college.
It is entirely different. Places that were, the process itself is more complex. It's so much more competitive. Behavior like this, completely unacceptable, is because college admissions has become so competitive. That's the reality. You know, the desperation or feelings of desperation and what these parents have gone to as a result, that's where we have the issue.
So is there any way to put the genie back in the bottle then, to make it less like this?
Well, I think we have to look to the colleges, right? We don't have control over this. We need colleges to step up and say, what is the message that we're sending when every year admissions numbers, the admit rates are going down, applications are up, and we come out every spring and after every early decision and say, look how few students we took. Look how many valedictorians we denied. They need to change the message. It's really up to them.
Here's my question. You have, you know, for years we've heard of just massive donations to colleges. You know, you have a wing or library named after this family or this family, and maybe that gives their child an advantage. This time around, it seems like they kind of snuck in through the athletic system. Clearly, these kids aren't even on this team. I mean, isn't, however you do this, setting your child up for failure? Because they also, now they're in Harvard or Yale or wherever, they have to perform. Or are they given a pass? Okay, we understand they failed a bunch of classes, but we'll keep them here because there's a lot of money that was donated.
I think from a legal standpoint, you bring up a really good point. It came up yesterday at the press conference, which is, people talk about donating buildings, donating a library, building something, and that's how so-and-so got into school. That whatever we may think of that from an ethical standpoint or moral standpoint, whatever our feelings are at this table or watching at home, it's not illegal. What happened yesterday that occurred is it wasn't with the knowledge of the university, according to the court documents that we were able to read, and it was something that was done. It was fraud. To your point, there were people that were admitted to be soccer players that had never played soccer, that would fake an injury that summer and say, well, that's why I can't play. So, yeah, it's setting them up for failure, to your point. In addition to that, once the federal government gives $10,000 in donations, I shouldn't say donations, but some sort of a founding money to one of these universities, at that point, it becomes something that is of interest to all of us, in the government and as taxpayers. That's what triggered this action yesterday. So they said, look, you're defrauding a university or an institution that we give over $10,000 to. Yeah. That's the trigger from a federal standpoint, and that's when it's going to become a crime.
Dr. Norman, your business helps prepare kids for college. When I was growing up, my dad was third shift at the post office. Mom was a school teacher. We couldn't afford your services. For folks who would say that even what you do gives kids an unfair advantage, your response would be what?
My response is the same as I said before, which kids are kids. They need help and they need guidance.
How much do you charge?
I have a range of prices. I don't think that's not something that I want to talk about. But I work pro bono with a lot of students. Okay. We work with CBOs, community-based organizations, working with students who don't have access to services. Mm-hmm. We work hard to try and listen. I can't make the whole system equitable, but I try my best, and I'm helping kids who really need help.
I think.
Tom, are there going to be? Are people going to see jail time out of this? Do you think?
It's a great question. So the people that orchestrated this scheme and put together all of this, they're definitely going to see jail time as part of their plea agreements with the government. As far as people, the Hollywood folks that we've been talking about, that we've seen their pictures on the news for the last 24 hours or so, the chances that they actually see jail time is pretty low. Mm-hmm. There's no violent crime associated with it. There's no other broader crime that they committed beyond this. In the sentencing guidelines, which we've heard a lot recently because of what's going on in the Mueller investigation, they do call for jail time, but the judges have wide discretion here. And so I think it's unlikely that they'll actually see time inside of a prison, maybe a supervised release, probation, those type of things, just because there's not other crimes associated with it.
What about the kids?
Yeah.
I mean, do they get kicked out of school? Or, I mean, it's going to be hard showing your face in class.
The U.S. attorney has left the door open to potentially charging some of the students that were involved in this and did have knowledge. Some of the kids didn't even know that their parents were doing this, according to the court documents. They do leave the door open for charges there, and then, it's going to be up to the schools. I don't know.
Acceptance letters are coming out next 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
So what about these kids who are looking for those letters?
I think there are going to be more questions and more hand-wringing. Certainly, those letters are starting to come out, and they'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. I think, though, the message stays the same. Work hard. Most people are getting in the right way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank
It's
you.
a good discussion.
Thank you for
it goes
helping us
back
try
to
to
the
make
have and
some sense of it.
have-nots, and I think that's why people get so
Yeah,
upset.
I think
And there are a lot of great other schools than these brand name schools.
Right.
Again,
These are not the
SUNY
only
Oswego.
schools out there.
Yeah.
Rutgers.
Yeah. There you go. Wofford.
Go Cats, Northwestern.
Oh yeah, that's a real.
Yeah,
low,
But again, work my butt off to get there.
That's
Don't
true.
get me started.
That's a good point.
Work hard.